Eurovision 2023 has come to an end, and boy was that a wild week. Eurovision this year, like live at least, turned out to be a rather strong year. The first semifinal I found to be the strongest of the two semifinals, but still the second semifinal was still very good and entertaining. And then the grand final, with a few hiccups here and there, and we'll get to talking about those things, I was very pleased with. I thought that it was a very solid grand final with a very chaotic voting process in the grand final. And we're going to talk about all of these things today in this video. But before we dive on into that, if you guys are new here to my channel, don't forget to hit subscribe. And also while you're down there, definitely give this video a thumbs up because that'll help me out a lot. All my links are down in the description box below, which are the links to my Twitter, Instagram, and my beauty, fashion, and lifestyle channel, all of which you can find down below if you are interested. And let's go ahead and dive on into this. We're going to start out by talking about the semifinals, and then we're going to go into talking about the grand final. And the grand final is where I'm really going to do a bulk of my chatting and whatnot. The semifinals, I'm just going to like briefly go over like first impressions of a lot of the songs and just my thoughts and opinions on the semis in general. So I actually wasn't able to watch either of the semifinals live because I had to work each of those days and everything. Like here in the US, or at least on the East Coast where I'm at, the semifinals start at 3 p.m. and I was working both days and my shifts started at 3 p.m. each of those days, I believe. I'm pretty sure they did. And I didn't get home those evenings till 9 p.m. So when I got home those evenings, I watched them. And I watched them through Peacock. Peacock once again got the rights to Eurovision this year. And I noticed this time around, I don't know if they did this for the semifinals, but I saw this when I was watching the grand final, because I watched the grand final live because I requested that day off, just so that way I can watch the grand final. Is that a bit bad? Possibly. But I don't care. Like, sometimes you gotta do things for you, and Eurovision is something that brings me so much peace and joy and happiness and everything, so it's just like, fuck it, we're gonna request that day off. With last year, they had a commentator for us US watchers on Peacock, and the commentator was good. He was a good commentator, but the thing is though, is that something that I like about with watching Eurovision is seeing the hosts interact with the different countries and just being out and about, like on like the crowds and everything and whatnot. I enjoy seeing that stuff. And with the commentator last year, they always like interrupted all that stuff, and like they always cut to the commentator on like a separate and like feed and everything, and it was just like we're looking at them instead of like seeing what's actually happening beyond that. And that really annoyed me with last year's competition and watching it last year. But this year I had noticed with the grand final, at least, like I said, I don't know if this was the case for the semis because I didn't see it for the semis, but I did see it for the grand final, is that you had the options to either watch it with or without a commentator. And so when it came to the grand final, I watched without. So like I said, I don't know if we had the options of watching with or without a commentator for the semis. I don't know. And honestly, I don't really care because the option that I saw was that you can watch it without. So yeah, so I was enjoying not having to deal with the commentator and everything, because like I said, the commentator last year just talked over everything and whatnot, like all the fun things that I like seeing, like all the behind the scenes stuff happening at Eurovision and whatnot, talked over all that type of shit. And that's not something that I look forward to. And oh my god, why is my phone blowing up? Okay, let me mute it. So the first semifinal, like I said, was definitely the strongest of the two semis in my opinion, with like having big acts in like Finland, Sweden, and Israel all involved, Czechia, Moldova, and Serbia. I knew all of them would make it, but then when it came to like Norway, Switzerland, and Portugal, I wasn't really sure if they would make it. I was like, they could potentially make it, they could potentially not make it, but I definitely was not seeing Croatia qualifying at all because, I mean, it's not the most substantial song out there. It's a good time. But holy fuck, was that staging a literal fever dream? I think that's what made them qualify, is the fact that everybody was like, what the fuck is happening here on this day? Like, that was so fucking bizarre. It made me so uncomfortable. And so I think that's why they made it through. And then the entries that didn't make it through were Latvia, Ireland, Netherlands, Azerbaijan, and Malta. I wasn't surprised that Ireland didn't make it. I just felt as if like it was just so weak of a performance, and like staging was definitely there, but performing the actual song though was so weak. It was so weak. I felt so bad. And Homeboy had a hungry ass camel toe. Like, it was not a good time. I don't remember Azerbaijan or Latvia's entries. Malta, I was a little bit surprised that they didn't make it, because I felt as if, just going by the audience reaction to their performance, that they would actually qualify, but they didn't, which, again, they didn't have the most exciting song or staging, but still, it was kind of like, which country was it? I think it was Latvia last year with, Eat Your Salad. Like, I felt like that song should have qualified even though it didn't and everything. And even though I'm not a fan of Malta's entry this year, I wasn't a fan of it at all. It's just not my thing. I thought just by seeing like the audience reaction to it that it would actually make it through, but apparently it didn't. And it, going based off of this list that I have here, it actually came in last. One entry that I knew probably wouldn't qualify, but I still wanted it to qualify because it was a song that I really enjoyed, was the Netherlands entry. I really liked their entry this year. I thought that it was cute and sweet and pleasant, but like I said, I didn't think that it would qualify. I even mentioned that in my video for like my top 10 songs for this year, that I didn't think that it would qualify, but a bitch can dream, okay? Let a bitch dream. Alright, so now we're gonna move on into semifinal 2. And so here, like I said, this one, just by going off of like the entries that were in here, this one I felt was like the weaker semifinal, just simply in terms of my personal tastes and opinions and whatnot. They had some strong contenders, but they also had like a lot more of the weaker entries this time around. We'll start out with the acts who qualified. The ones that I was really excited for them to actually qualify were Austria. I was very, very excited and happy for them that they actually qualified, because that was a song that I think I even mentioned in my top 10 video that I could see it not qualifying. But I'm so happy that they did. Slovenia's entry, although I do find it to be like a little bit more on the weaker side of things in terms of like the other entries this year, they did a really good job with the performance and everything, so it was good seeing them making it through. Belgium, again, not a fan of their entry. I hated Homeboy's outfit with a burning passion brighter than 1,000 suns. Oh my god, that outfit was so bad. So bad. I hated that outfit so much. Really happy for Albania for qualifying, because I know last year they didn't qualify. I know typically Albania does qualify, but with this particular song I wasn't entirely sure if they would or not, just simply because it is one of those like more theatrical songs. The theatrical songs can be very hit or miss when it comes to Eurovision, but they did qualify. Estonia, it's a good song, but it's not the strongest song, so I was shocked to kind of see them qualify, but at the same time I'm glad that they did, because again, great song and everything, and she's got a wonderful voice on her. And I'm very, very happy that her voice didn't crack with the final note in both the semi and the grand final, because I think it nearly cracked at the very end of her performance in the grand final. Cyprus, I was happy to see qualify. I mentioned in my top 10 that it was in my top 10 before Georgia came along, which we'll talk about that in just a moment. I was very happy that he qualified, and oh my god, Homeboy looked so fucking hot. He is so fine. And the two things that shocked me the most when it came to the qualifiers were semifinal two was that one, Poland made it. And going off of this list that I have here, they came in third place in the second semifinal, which shocks me so much. Their song, I don't like the song. It's so bland and generic and everything. But I will say this, Homegirl did put on a good show. But the song itself is just so mediocre. It's not competitive. It is just so bland. But I will give her props for this though, because Homegirl received so much backlash and was just being shit on constantly and everything, which I don't know the ins and outs of her as a person. I ain't paying attention to that shit. I'm judging this shit solely based off of music and my personal tastes and preferences and whatnot. I tip my wig to her because Homegirl powered through it and didn't like back down at all, like when the entire world is like shitting on her and everything. Like, she went in, she did the damn thing, and she did pretty damn good in the long run. And so, like I said, I tip my wig to her. Not my thing at all in the slightest, but good for her. The main thing that I am so excited to report is that not only did Australia, my favorite entry, my babies over at Voyager, not only did they qualify into the grand final, but they actually won the semifinal. They won that second semifinal. Like, yes, I'm so happy for my boys over there. They don't know who I am, but it's just, I'm so happy for them. I mentioned this in my top 10 video that I have been a fan of Voyager for nearly a decade now, and I learned about them through their song Hyperventilating back in 2014, and I have just been in love with them ever since. I mean, I have Colors in the Sun on vinyl. Like, I love this band, okay? And they have a new album coming out. I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head, but it's coming out in July. I'm looking forward to it. I have a reaction video for their latest single, Prince of Fire, up here on my channel, so if you want to check that out, definitely do so. It is a stunning song from them. Is so good. I think the only entry that I didn't mention that qualified was Slovenia, which I was a bit shocked that they qualified, just simply because those kinds of songs can be very hit or miss when it comes to Eurovision. I know for me, I wasn't really that miffed with it and everything. It wasn't really my thing. I wasn't mad at it, but I didn't also like it either. And so it was nice seeing them qualify and everything and whatnot. I like the outfits. I like the staging. The song really isn't my particular thing, but they still put on a good show. But now let's talk about those who didn't qualify. So Iceland didn't qualify, which I was a bit shocked by because Homegirl has a very strong voice and she did put on a good show, but it was also just a bit like almost fading into the background in comparison to those who did qualify. Greece was so fucking boring. I'm sorry, it was so boring. I think this was probably the most boring entry to perform at Eurovision this year. And I roasted the shit out of Poland already. And so that's how you know that this was bad. Like, the staging was just so boring. The song was boring. It just felt as if there was like nothing put into it. I don't know the ins and outs to things that go into like the competition. I know that there have been times in the past where certain countries aren't able to do everything it is that they want to do for their staging due to like last minute issues, or like the ideas that they have in mind are just not feasible and everything. So I don't know if there was something that was supposed to be done that didn't happen or what, or they were trying to like channel a particular vibe, but this was just, it was just bad. Denmark, again, just really boring. The song was just really lackluster. The staging just wasn't interesting at all and whatnot. It just, no, it was the flop. Romania and San Marino, both going from this list, got 0 points, so they actually did the weakest in the entire competition this year. Romania, again, staging, boring as hell. Song, boring as hell, just no. And San Marino, I'm shocked that they did this poorly. I thought that San Marino might qualify. I had a feeling they would be in like in that range of like they could, but they also probably won't. I didn't expect them to be at the bottom though, and everything. I wouldn't put them at the bottom. Like, it's not the best song, but it's also not that bad though either. The one entry that I'm like so pissed about is Georgia not qualifying. Like, Georgia should have qualified this year. That being said though, I can understand to a degree why they didn't qualify. Like, the only reason why I say that is because I feel as if the staging could have been so much better. Again, I mentioned this when I talked about like the more theatrical songs. The theatrical entries can be like hit or miss for a lot of people, and I feel like this might have been one of those cases where it was just like people just didn't get into it because of the fact that it was more of a theatrical song. But I think that they also, I think where it failed the most at though was possibly with the staging. I enjoyed the staging for the most part, and I loved Homegirl's look so much. Like, Homegirl slayed the fuck out of that look. But I think where the staging failed them at though is that she stayed in the same spot the entire time. And when you stay in the same position the entire time, you gotta make sure that you can like control the stage. Like, you have complete control of the stage. You have the audience's complete and total attention. It's got to be 100% when it comes to the staging. Like, if she had like backup dancers, I think that things would have been a little bit better for her, even with her standing still. Because vocally, the song, like vocally and production wise, the song is there. It's just that the staging was just not where it needed to be at. And I feel as if that they would have made like some subtle tweaks with the staging, they would have been able to qualify. And the fact that they didn't qualify, like I said, it makes me so mad. It makes me so mad. Oh god, I hate that they didn't qualify. Like, this is like the same level of hatred for a song not qualifying burning within me as with Croatia in 2021. Like, Albina was robbed and Iru was robbed. So yeah, we're just gonna leave it at that. Let's talk about the hosting real quick, because I feel like the hosts people tend to not really pay too much attention to, but I found that the hosting this year was actually really fun. And I always like it when the hosts are like really into it. Like, you can tell that like they're not just here working a paycheck and everything. Like, this is something that they're actually really happy to be doing and that they're having a lot of fun. When it was just Julia, Hannah, and Alicia hosting, like, they were having a lot of fun. Even when Graham was popping in during the grand final, again, they were having a lot of fun. And I love the fact that the first semifinal opened up with a Hard Kiss song. I was so happy about it, and it just, it made my queer little heart so happy and everything. And it was such a good song to open up the competition with too. Maya is such a wonderful song from them, and I love it a lot. I mean, I love the Hard Kisses music in general, but that song is a really good one. And it was such a good song to open the competition with, because it is such a empowering song and just has like so much fire and passion in it. And just, I loved it. I loved it. And the fact that that's how they opened the competition is just, oof, it made me so happy. And Julia looked so wonderful and everything, which I'm not entirely sure if her name is actually pronounced Julia or if it is pronounced Yulia. I know I've been saying Yulia for years. I don't know if they were just saying Julia because they're English or if her name is actually Yulia. I don't know. So if I go back and forth between pronunciations in this video, just know that's because I'm not entirely sure what the actual pronunciation is at this point. They were such amazing hosts though, and they all had such an amazing time and all had like so much fun. Like, just Graham Norton in the grand final just making like those random quips oh my god, and just like breaking everybody and everything, especially Hannah when they were going through like the votes from the juries, especially like him and his side comments. Oh my god, this is like watching like a straight woman and her gay best friend interacting with each other. Like you can tell that these hosts all got along really well and just like had a blast with each other, and that's what I loved seeing and everything. Like I felt like last year, the hosts last year, I don't know, I don't know, I just got a vibe that they all really didn't care for each other and everything. Like it was just like they just felt like they were colleagues, and it was almost as if they were working like a paycheck and everything. Like it just didn't seem like, I don't know, something about the hosting last year, it just didn't do it for me. But this year, it was just so much fun. The humor that everybody had, and just all the things, like when Julia and Hannah had that sing-off moment and everything, like, ooh, bitch, that was wonderful. And just, again, like, Graham Norton's like just random quips. Like again, this is why you can't bring the gays to things, because the gays are just gonna like make all of these side comments that are just gonna catch everybody off guard. But that's what I love though, because I am that kind of gay myself. Also, I really loved the little drag performance during the second semifinal. That was a lot of fun. I loved in the first semifinal as well was the performance of Ordinary World from Duran Duran. I thought that that was a really good performance and just like really beautiful and really fun. And then also, I just remembered this, I think this was also in the first semifinal, that bit during the voting period, I think, where they had that one performance where they performed the Ukrainian version of Carol the Bells. Like that particular interval act, whom is that chick? Because Homegirl's got a stunning voice, and just, I love that. Like if anybody can let me know as to what all those songs were in the comments below, please do, because that interval act was so good. I loved that so much. Now let's go over the grand final. So the grand final, like I said, I was able to watch this one live, and I wanted to throw a Eurovision party this year, but sadly everybody, like in terms of like, when I say everybody, I mean like all my friends, like everyone's schedules like conflicted with everything and whatnot. I should have planned this a lot sooner and been like, hey, request this Saturday off. We are throwing a party here. It's just gonna be a Eurovision watch party. That's what it's gonna be and everything. But yeah, everyone's schedules conflicted, and it was so last minute and whatnot, me trying to make plans for it, so nobody could plan ahead for it. So I am a bit bummed about that, but still, I had a good time, even though it was just me on my bed here in my room watching it. We're going to start out by talking about the jury votes first, and then we'll go into talking about the results from the public vote, and I'm going to talk about each country going up from the public votes and everything. But the jury votes were actually quite interesting and everything. Like this year, all countries got votes from the juries, which I was very happy about and everything, because the last few years there have been countries that didn't get any votes from the juries and whatnot. And I was happy to see that Germany at least got some jury votes. Some entries that surprised me when it came to the juries. I was shocked by how good Australia did. I was really surprised that they did pretty well with the juries. They came in 6th place with the juries. I was also surprised that the juries liked Finland as much as they did too, because again, like typically when it comes to like the rock songs, more edgier type of songs and everything, the juries don't tend to favor them, but I was surprised they favored them quite well. I think that's all that I really have to say about the jury votes. So let's go ahead and talk about the grand final and the final results, and we're going to go in and talk about each country going from the bottom of the list to the top of the list. I'm going to go more in depth about talking about each individual country and their performance here and everything. So if you want my in-depth opinions on things and whatnot, this is the part for it. Germany, they only got about 18 points in total from the juries and the televote. was honestly expecting them to do better and everything. I didn't think that they deserved to be this low in terms of the rankings, in terms of the voting and whatnot. I still understand why they didn't do the best though, and I know some people are like, oh, there are other like rock and metal songs in the grand final this year and they did better. Why did they do better than Lord of the Lost did? And honestly, the answer that I can give is that it's not a fun song. Like, it's just a little too gritty, it's a little too dark and everything. It's very much a Lord of the Lost song. I'm not saying this from a point of place where it's just like, yeah, I mentioned this in my top 10 video that I'm not the biggest Lord of the Lost fan, but you have to keep in mind that, yeah, it's a fun song, it's got a bit of a campy side to it and everything, but it still feels like a Lord of the Lost song, and I feel like the general public isn't necessarily going to gravitate towards something like that. Also, the staging wasn't the most exciting either and whatnot. I'd say like the most exciting part about the staging were honestly the outfits, in my opinion, and everything. So yeah, I can understand why it didn't do best. I am bummed that they didn't do better, but I definitely understand why they didn't do as good as I would have hoped for them to do, because I actually thought that this year Germany would have actually have done pretty well in terms of the rankings this year, just because of the fact that like they're sending like something so different and everything, and also because of the fact that they're sending like such seasoned musicians like Lord of the Lost to represent them. Next up we have the United Kingdom, which they got 24 votes. Again, wasn't expecting them to do this poorly. I mean, I already knew that it wasn't gonna do the greatest and everything, but I was expecting it to be a little bit more middle of the road, kind of like with Germany and everything, and I was shocked to see that this didn't do that great and everything. And this was the moment when you really started seeing just how rowdy of a crowd like the Liverpool audience was. Oh my god, that was a rough crowd. This definitely wasn't like my kind of song and everything. And the staging was fun. I like the staging. Vocally, it could have been a little bit more like big, I guess you could say. It was a little bit flat and everything vocally and everything, but it was still a fun time though and everything. So I am shocked that it did this poorly and everything. Like, they were second best last year and now they're second to last this year, so it's just like all over the place and everything. But hey, I like Mae Muller, like wonderful human being. I just seeing her during the interviews and hearing things about her on Twitter and everything, like she is just, she's such a cool chick and everything, but I feel bad that they didn't do that great. Next up we have Serbia. I was actually both shocked that they didn't do better, but at the same time I completely understand why, and that is that this is more so a visual performance than it is a vocal performance. And I don't know, I found like their performance in this selection, like the national selection, to be a lot more intriguing and interesting than during the semi of the grand final. I was actually honestly shocked that they qualified into the grand final, because the only thing about their performance that is like remotely interesting is the staging. Vocally, there's nothing exciting about the song. Like, you can barely hear him and everything because it's mostly like rhythmic speaking. Next up we have is Portugal. This was a good song, but I definitely didn't see it doing very well in the grand final and everything. I wasn't expecting it to qualify. I'm glad that it did because it is a fun song, but I also didn't see it going very far. It's just a fun time and everything, and these kinds of songs can be very hit or miss when it comes to Eurovision, so I'm not surprised that it didn't do that great. Albania, I'd say that that's a pretty good spot in comparison to everybody that's here and everything for the most part, because I feel like the song is just like very theatrical. It's a very big song and everything, but at the same time though, it was like there was a lot happening but not enough happening, so it makes sense. Slovenia, I'd say, is at a good spot and everything, because again, like, it's not the most exciting song ever, but still pretty decent and whatnot. Same thing goes for Switzerland, which I forgot to mention, I also didn't like his outfit either. I didn't like the top. I just felt as if like it was just like constructed in a weird way. That's just a me thing though. Poland, although like they're still rather low, they did a lot better in the grand final than I was expecting them to. So I again tip my wig to her for that. Moldova, like I'd say that this is a pretty good spot for them because like vocally, this was an issue that I had with the national selection performance, and even with the studio version of it, is that you can't really hear the main guy's voice. You hear his backup singers more than you can him and everything. And it's just, yeah, like staging wise though, fun time and everything. And homeboy has got a nice body. Spain, I mean, to a degree, I kind of saw it coming. Spain is definitely not a song that you pay attention to for the vocals. It was definitely more so a performance piece. And I had a feeling that it wouldn't do the greatest because of it. This was a very bold choice for a performance and everything. It didn't do as poorly as France's entry last year, with it being like something that's like very outside of the box, but it still wasn't something that I knew would win, and something that would probably be like here, like right in the middle of the road and everything, because it came in 17th out of 26, which it's not completely in the middle of the road, but it's right at the end of the middle of the road. We have is France, which I was hoping that they would do a little bit better. They were one of my favorites. They were one of my top 10 favorites this year, but I do see why they didn't do the greatest, and that is just simply because the staging, again, was one of those situations where you need to know how to command the stage, and I just feel as if she didn't really do that, and I felt like the staging for the music video suited the song way more than the staging here at the grand final did. Austria, very happy that they are right there, like in the middle of the road and everything. I feel as if like this was one of those songs that was a bit of a fan favorite. Like everybody always got into it. Like you can hear like when the first chorus kicks in, like all the audience members just like screaming po 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 Edgar Allan Poe. Armenia, I was actually really surprised with Armenia because I remember when the music video for their song dropped, I was like, this is nice. It's not one of my top 10 favorites, but it's a nice song. After hearing it in the semi-final and then here in the grand final, I was like, this is a new favorite for me. Like I added it onto my favorite Eurovision song playlist that I have on Spotify after this. This is one of those songs that thrives live, and it was so beautiful. The staging, oh my god, that staging was stunning. Absolutely everything. And just, I am so glad that they placed this high. Croatia, I am so proud of them. Like, again, was not expecting them to do this well. Like, coming in 13th place with that fever dream of a song and performance. But I think it's because of that they did so well. Like, it was so memorable that people had to vote for it. Cyprus came in 12th place, which, again, very happy for them because homeboy's fine as hell. It's got a great voice. The staging was really good. Really enjoyed it. Lithuania actually did a lot better than I was expecting them to. I was expecting them to be a little bit more middle of the road, but they are just one away from being in the top 10, which is where we are at now. So here in the top 10, in 10th place, we have Czechia, which I am happy to see them in the top 10. I will say this, I feel as if the song is a little bit better in studio in my personal preference. Live, I just feel as if like vocally it's not strong and everything, but I think it's because of the fact that like in the studio it sounds more choir-like, whereas live it doesn't sound nearly as choir-like, which I prefer that choir-like sound. Just felt like the staging could have been just a little bit better. It could have been a little bit more exciting and like artsy-fartsy like the music video was. It still had its like artsy quirks and whatnot, but it wasn't anything like the music video. Australia, I am so happy that they made it into the top 10, and this is where I have to like make that note with like the difference between this and Lord of the Lost, because yes, this is a metal song too, but the thing is though is that this is fun. Like, this is a fun metal song. Like, anybody can get into this, even if they're not into metal music, they are able to get into this. And also the staging was so fucking cool. Like, the staging was just amazing. I loved it so much. Like, Danny just chilling in that car right from the get-go. It's just like, yes, I am here for it. I can't snap because I have these little thumb holes here, but bitch, I was so here for it, and I'm so happy that they actually made it into the top 10. I wish that they would have ranked a bit higher, but that's my own personal bias. But I don't have to pee on everything in the world and everything because they made it into the top 10. 8th place we have Estonia, which again, shocked that they did as well as they did. I was expecting them to be a little bit more middle of the road, but it was still a good song with a good performance and staging, so very happy for them. Belgium, I am shocked that they made it into the top 10, but at the same time, I feel as if like this was like one of those ones that like everybody got excited about and everything. I don't know, there's something about it that did make me feel a little bit weird and everything, and with just like the ballroom vibe and everything, and just like, I don't know, there's just something about it where it's just like seeing like an old white man having like black people parade around him. It was almost as if like he was tokenizing them a little bit. Like, that's just me. That might just be a deep cut and everything that I might be pulling out of my ass and everything, but I don't know, there's just something about it that, I don't know. 6th place, Ukraine. I was shocked that they actually did this well. I was expecting them to be a little bit more middle of the road and everything, but they did quite well. Like, this is a song that I really wasn't all that into. The revamp is a lot better than the original version of the song. It is so much better than the original version, and I am very happy that they did this well and everything, especially for hosting. When I see like the entry for like the previous year's winner, I feel as if that in the years that I've kept up with the competition, they tend to half-ass it, or they send in like a song that is probably not gonna do the greatest, and it's kind of like them being like, oh, we're already here, we don't really need to be the most exciting and everything. And I'm glad to say that they actually did really well. Now, whether or not it was possibly like pity votes that got them up that high, I don't know, but I do genuinely think that the song is good. Everything is just not my cup of tea. I can recognize a good song for a good song, and just because I'm not into it doesn't mean that it's bad. Coming up at 5th place is Norway. I was very shocked by this. I was really shocked because they didn't do the greatest with the juries, I don't think. Let me check. Yeah, they didn't do that great with the juries at all. Like, they were 17th with the juries, but then they came in 2nd place in the grand final. Not 2nd place, they came in 5th place in the grand final because they got like, what was it, like over 200 votes from the televote. I was very shocked. Like this was not a song that I was really into. I was surprised that they like made it into the grand final and everything. This was one of those songs where I was just like, I could see this qualifying, but I can also see it not qualifying. And to see that they made it into 5th place, that is wild to me. That is wild to me. I didn't expect it to be like this highly rated. 4th place we have is Italy, which their song was pretty good. Like, Homeboy's got a good voice and everything, and like the staging was pretty nice and whatnot. It suited the tone and vibe of the song and everything, and he's cute as hell. Like, oh my god, he is so fine and just like so awkward. I hate him as a person. Like, just fascinates me because he was just so awkward, just like so uncomfortable the entire time. It melted me a little bit. 3rd place we have is Israel, and I am both shocked that they did this great, but at the same time, they fucking brought it and everything. So I kind of expected some good things to come from this. I will say this, I don't know how I felt about those glam trip pants that she was wearing before like the big reveal until like the dance breakdown and whatnot, but other than that though, like this was such a good performance. Then we have like a major controversy, and that is the top two, which like in second place is Finland. This was such a massive controversy on Twitter, and even just like hearing the people and like the audience there in Liverpool just like freaking the fuck out because everybody was screaming cha 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 in the audience during like the voting process and everything, and everybody like Graham and Hannah were just like, y'all need to chill the fuck out here, like you're being rude as fuck to like all the other entries and whatnot. Like a country will be given 12 points and everybody starts chanting like cha cha cha, like bitch, no, don't do that, like don't, no. I know you like the song, but chill the fuck out, man. Let them have their moment. And it was because of the audience reactions to it that it was actually turning me off and me being like, I don't want them to win now, because it's just like they're being so negative about it and everything. Like they're just being like putting like other countries down and everything and not letting them have their moments because like it's not something that is our favorite, and it just made me just feel bad and whatnot. I was just like, you know what, out of spite, I don't want them to win and everything, even though I really do love and enjoy Finland's entry and everything. It's a wonderful song and everything. I mean, it was a fan favorite. It had the most televotes. This is why it spurred up so much controversy, is because like not only did they lose by less than 60 points, but also the winning country only got about 200 votes from the televote, and majority of their votes came from the juries. And so many people are like screaming about how like the jury votes need to be taken away, or that the jury system needs to be reevaluated and whatnot. And I'm just over here like, y'all only ever do this and have this conversation when your favorite entries don't get anywhere and whatnot. Like you only ever start screaming like the juries are rigged, the competition is rigged. This shit is not rigged, bitch. Like get the fuck over it. Like there are so many entries in this competition now at this point, like chill the fuck out. But the winning country, and I called it, I knew that the song would most likely win, and it did win, and that was Sweden. This was my second favorite entry this year and everything because of my bias towards Voyager and whatnot, but deep down I knew and wanted this song to win because it's one of those songs where it's just too fucking good to be in Eurovision. Like this sounded like a regular Loreen track. It is such a beautiful and perfect song and so powerful. I'm so happy for her. Like she was getting like 12 points from the juries left and right, and I was just losing my fucking mind, and I was just like, holy shit, like if the televote doesn't pull through for Finland and everything, and like Loreen's gonna fucking take it, and she fucking did. And I'm so happy that she did. I mean, I wasn't gonna be mad if either Finland or Sweden won and everything, but deep down I really wanted Tattoo to win, because I mean, like, although I liked Finland, it's more so in my top 5 and not my top 3. I'm so happy for her. Like the staging was wonderful, the song is wonderful, and just everything about it was just perfect, and I'm so freaking happy. And I audibly screamed here in my room when she won. I loved how like after her winning performance and like the credits start rolling through, she's just sitting there on the stage just like, yeah, like it's almost as if like she's just like having a hard time like taking it all in, but is like keeping her shit together at the same time and whatnot, and she's just sitting there on stage while everybody is just cheering and screaming and whatnot. And I just started cracking the fuck up because it's just like, what the fuck is happening right now? This is weird. She's just sitting there and everything. It's almost like it reminded me, I've never seen this live, but I've heard countless stories of people who have, it's kind of like if you were to go see Cats on Broadway. And it's during intermission. And old Deuteronomy is just sitting there on the stage, just hanging out during intermission the entire time. Like, that was the vibe that I was getting from that. Is that bad? Is that bad? I hope not. That, kids, is my breakdown, my review, I guess, and my commentary on Eurovision 2023. How did you guys feel about the competition this year? I really enjoyed it. I thought that it was a very solid competition this year. Wonderful show. The host did an amazing job, which that's actually one thing that I will mention. I do wish that there was a bit more of a Ukrainian presence in the show aspect of the competition this year. Besides just having like a few performers here and there, I wish that there was a bit more of a Ukrainian presence. Other than that, I thought that it was a wonderful time. But what did you guys think about it? Are you bitter about Finland not winning, or are you happy like me that Sweden actually won? In a way, I want to open up that can of worms in the comments below, but at the same time, I'm scared to see what breaks out down there, because I know how Eurovision fans are. I know how you guys are. I heard you all booing during the grand final when the UK didn't get any votes, or well, I say they didn't get any votes, or they didn't do well and everything with the televote and whatnot. I heard that shit. I heard that. I heard you guys screaming cha 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 after like every country that wasn't Finland getting like 12 points and everything. Like, I ain't prepared for that shit. I'm just an American from southeastern US and everything, like, no. But I am curious to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions at the same time though, so as long as you keep it civilized, feel free to discuss in the comments. But until I see you guys in my next video, whenever that might be, goodbye.